Hi, my name's Amanprit, Arnold, and my lived experience that I am profoundly deaf and a BSR user.
Why is it important to have diverse inputs in research?
I think it's really important to have diverse research with disabled input because disability population is a huge population and they're often underrepresented in research. So you really do need to factor in kind of like their thinking and challenge stereotypes as well. With their input, you also learn about the barriers in society and using technology in their everyday life. Because you know those barriers are there, you also think of solutions that you wouldn't have thought otherwise.
Have you been involved in contributing to co-design or as a research participant?
So as the founder of the Get City Hub, I kind of co-designed a workshop with the Get community to make sure that their experiences and thoughts are involved in the future design of Get City Hub. But also with my professional background as an urban researcher, I have been on steering groups designing for disabled experience to make sure that that kind of research informed the inclusive design London plan for London. Being involved in research in the architectural sector as well as the real estate sector on what does it mean on disability and inclusion in development generally. Yeah.
What advice would you recommend to early career researchers to create inclusive settings when co-creating or conducting research?
So the first thing I would say for early career researchers is to have a bit of self-reflection and recognise your own privileges and your own experiences and how that kind of bias may influence your kind of like research. The second one is to practice active listening. So make sure you are really listening to disabled people involved in the project. With doing research with disabled people, you need to make sure that you factor in an accessibility budget because you do have to pay for a lot of accessibility considerations. So think about that when you're applying for grants for funding or running a programme and do not underestimate that. Also, the last thing when it comes to dissemination is to make sure that it's all accessible and allow a budget for that as well, and keep checking with the community to make sure people actually understand what you're trying to convey.
In terms of your lived experience, what have you seen done well? Or what has worked well for you in the past?
So what's worked well for me in the past as a research participant is when the researcher asked if there are any accessibility requirements and they kind of organise an interpreter or captions or kind of like paper with research questions in advance. So just because it's one disability, don't assume that it's one accessibility requirement given to that is a spectrum. So for them to ask that has been quite helpful for me.
Can you share any common mistakes that researchers should avoid?
So common mistakes that researchers should avoid is just focusing purely on the disability. They should be considering and approaching this with a social model in place and kind of look through those lens. Also speaking for the disabled community and try and speak with the disabled community is really important in inclusive research.
Is there anything else researchers should be mindful of when working with the disabled community?
Okay. I think researchers should factor in time and flexibility when working with disabled people because what might work at a time may not actually work out at the end. So always factor that into your programme and allow a little bit more extra time for that.
Do you have any final tips or recommendations you would like to share?
I think there's a difference between virtual and in-person as well. So making sure all the accessibility features are enabled online because often in the past, especially when it's certain platforms like Zoom, I'm having to remind people, can you please set this up, can you please set this up? And when you're using interpreters, you're having to use two people. So I think it's quite important to explain to people at the beginning how it works so people aren't exactly thrown off while that kind of research is happening online.